I'm not teaching, I am public learning. But hi and welcome to Learning for the Life in the UK test, part 170, Labour government from conflicts in Afghanistan and Iraq war. So this will be about war and about the Afghanistan war and the Iraq war. While doing risk training. And if you participate in risk training, this is at your own risk. Before we're going on with that, just because it was a bit fast, the Labour government from 1997 until 2010. So Tony Blair, the leader of the Labour Party, was elected in 1997, and he introduced a Scottish Parliament and a Welsh Assembly. The Scottish Parliament has substantial powers to legislate. That means basically to govern. That means to make laws, I think means legislate. They can make laws, which means to govern. I don't know the differences. And the Welsh Assembly had not so much legislative powers, so they could not make so much laws, but they could control the public services. And the Blair government was also able to bring the peace process further on with Ireland, and in 1998 the Good Friday Agreement was signed, and then yes, it was signed, and a Northern Ireland Assembly was elected in 1999, suspended in 2002, but then reinstated in 2007, and the most paramilitary groups in Northern Ireland have decommissioned their arms and are inactive. I still don't really know what commissioned means or decommissioned. We had it here that the government of Winston Churchill, still the wartime government, the report was commissioned by the wartime government to William Beveridge to look how a more social, better state could be built. Now what it means commissioned? I said something about taking an action. Now these weapons were now decommissioned, taken out of action. And when Gordon Brown became the Prime Minister in 2007, I think of the United Kingdom. But it could be also of Ireland, or of Northern Ireland, because we were talking last about the Northern Ireland Assembly. But we don't know if the Northern Ireland Assembly is Northern Ireland, or if it is in London, in London, or if it governs, and it could be that it governs for the United Kingdom, for the whole United Kingdom, in London, and they are coming from Northern Ireland. Conflicts in Afghanistan and Iraq. Throughout the 1990s, Britain played a leading role in coalition forces involved in the liberation of Kuwait, following the Iraqi invasion in 1990 and the conflict in the former Republic of Yugoslavia. So, now we're going to explain anything, not really. Throughout the 1990s, that was the time still theoretisch of John Major, but we're talking more about Tony Blair now, I think. But the first Iraq war, what we're talking about with Kuwait, was, I think, before Tony Blair was Prime Minister, before 1997. Throughout the 1990s, Britain played a leading role in coalition forces involved in the liberation of Kuwait, following the Iraqi invasion in 1990 and the conflict in the former Republic of Yugoslavia. So from the beginning, I don't know very much about Iraq, but we can take a map. I don't know if we have one on that region. What is one? We don't have one from that region. We just can take a world map. So, where is Iraq? Here's Iran, and where's Iraq? Where's Saudi Arabia? Where's Turkey? Where is Iraq? Now, I think Kuwait is not even on that map. Where it is? Where's Kuwait? Down there. Very little there. Really little. So where's Iraq? And Iraq had invaded Kuwait. And have we? Iraq had invaded Kuwait. Iraq under Hussein. And Britain played a leading role in the coalition of the forces to then liberate Kuwait from the Iraqi occupation. So that's the first thing. Iraq had invaded Kuwait, and Britain was one of the very important people of this coalition to liberate Kuwait from the Iraqi forces. And in the conflict in the former Republic of Yugoslavia. Have you anything more for it? And the conflict in the former Republic of Yugoslavia. So it was Yugoslavia. That was also out of date, but not as much as that. No, I think we will not find Yugoslavia on this map. And I don't know what the states are now of Yugoslavia. But it is somewhere here. Somewhere there in southeastern Europe. There was the former Yugoslavia, and there was also a conflict in the 1990s. And what do we have here? Britain was involved to... Yes, the coalition. So there was a conflict in Yugoslavia and in Kosovo, and Britain was involved in that conflict. Since 2000, but I don't know much about it, this is why I can't talk much about it. Since 2000, and here again, I'm reading right now about the Kosovo conflict and the former Yugoslavian conflict, and I'm right here reading about it, and I'm not getting any new information, except that there was a conflict. Since 2000, British armed forces, and the problem is, the next time I'm going to hear about it, it's just someone saying the Kosovo conflict, Yugoslavia conflict, and all I know is there was a conflict in the 1990s. I know a few things more over the time, but it's basically, if not done research in that direction, you will never find anything more to it. And I think that is because the people in general don't know anything more than that there was a conflict. If that. Otherwise, they would love to talk. They would talk by themselves about the conflict, what happened there. But they don't do it. I think that is because they don't know. They just don't state it. Since 2000, that is too long. We're not going to come through, and we're having this training. Since 2000, we are studying the next thing. Maybe we're not going to start it and doing it tomorrow. We're going through all the conflicts very fast. Let's start it. Anyone knows what I'm talking about? Who knows what I'm talking about and may want to hear at least a little bit. Since 2000, British armed forces have been engaged in the global fight against So we're talking now about more. I said about the Afghanistan war and the Iraq war. Now we're talking about terrorism and probably about... So we're talking at least about Al-Qaeda. So since 2000, British armed forces have been engaged in the global fight against international terrorism and against the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, including operations in Afghanistan and Iraq. British combat troops left Iraq in 2009. The UK now operates in Afghanistan as part of the United Nations UN mandate 50 Nations International Security Assistance Force (ISAF) coalition, and at the invention of the Afghan government. It is 2025. I think this book is from 2013. It's just the news which exists. Maybe. So I don't know, it's not from 2025. So what we're learning here is not... It's past actually. ISAF, I'm just going to read it through because some people just want to know what's going on. ISAF is working to ensure that the Afghan territory can never again be used as a safe haven for international terrorism, where groups such as Al-Qaeda could plan attacks on the international community. As part of this, ISAF is building up the Afghan National Security Forces and is helping to create a secure environment in which governance and development can be extended. International forces are gradually handing over responsibility for security to the Afghans, who will have full security responsibility in all provinces by the end of 2014. There we have an asterisk, but this is maybe out of date or oversimplified. Here's a bit more to the Brexit actually, in the next part. So, the rest of the section is now about the still optimistic view on the Afghanistan conflict and building a secure Afghan government. We will continue here with this optimistic, out-of-date view to the Afghan government. So if you're here for that, you can go to the next part. We're just doing our risk training and then maybe something to the inventions, but nothing new anymore. So if you participate in risk training with on a risk, we are having just to go to the stairs end. We're having the hands next to us, flat hands. This is the magician, and we're bringing these flat hands to the inside and to the outside. Back to the inside and to the outside. And a few times more. And the last time to the outside. And back in another pancake flipper. Very similar. Flat hands next to us, and we are taking them up and again down. And we're having 3 rules for this exercise. The first rule is that we are stopping immediately as soon as we feel pain. The second rule is that we count only as far as we can go with a little bit of effort, and then not forcing anything. And the third rule is that we're not overdoing it. We're stopping before we're reaching our potential. That will be now after the midterm. Now we T-Rex in the morning, the hands out, and we bring these hands down. And again up, down, up. And I think we have that already as the last exercise, which is the cautious split break. That exercise, we're going to place the fingertips of one hand on the fingernails of the other hand, and we are opening, closing again, and we're pressing it a bit onto the finger. And one last time, we're opening and closing, and now we're switching. Opening and closing. And the last time. Now just a bit of relaxation for the extension of the jaw muscle. Have a bend in the arm and go with moderate pressure for the middle part of the lower arm. And on the other side. And the last time. Now we're having 2 minutes. So it was Sir Frank Whitley who made the jet engine, and it was Frank Crespi. Was it just Frank? Actually, just Frank? That's short. Francis, okay, Francis. Francis Crick, the helix of the DNA. So what I'm showing here is Sir Frank Whittle, that's the jet engine. Jet engines are round at the end. And the way it's coming, whatever it's called out. And Sir Francis Crick. So Francis Crick, the helix. I don't know what a helix is, but I know how it looks like. A helix, these are a bunch of some things like that over on top of each other, and they have them turned. So the next one is not straight on top, but a little turned, and the next one is when again a little turned in, and going like that, and that way it turns over and over again. So it starts like that, and then the next one comes that, and that way, and that way, and that way, and it turns also, it goes always one on top, which is a little bit more like that. So like that, like a ladder, just the ladder is like a tornado twisted, but it's a helix. And the DNA is built as such a helix, and the DNA is always in these things. I think we're always two. I still don't know how we are called. So there's when always this ladder is part of the ladder, when there's Tebion, Ebion, and then the next one is Thymion and Dymion, and Tebion and Ebion, and so on. And they are in a helix. So if I show Francis Crispy, I mean, but it looks like a Helix because of this wonderful letter or something like that. But I mean, jet engine. Sir Frank Whittle with jet engine. Just so that you know what I mean. And there is a learning method that learns something a bit completely in the dance. So this went the dance, and it will be the first movement, or second movement, and so on. And you can learn pretty much actually from that. It's complicated. I don't know if anyone has actually done it properly. I think very much. Until next time.